What is the time? We can define time as a process of comparison of flows of two processes. We compare the flow of one process with the progress of another one. We may ask, how often one process repeats while another one still not ends. To do the comparison we can use one process as standard, usually this is a repeatable process, and compare with it the measured one. As an analogy, we can use the procedure of finding the length of the object. We count how many times the smaller object, measuring stick, fits in the measured one. Then we measure the time. We count how many times the faster, shorter, process will fits in the bigger, longer, one. Obviously, the shorter the standard process in accordance with the measured one, the more accurate result will be obtained. Let's create a hypothetical world. A world where only drop clock in use. What is the construction of this clock? Here it is. In a reservoir, filled with water, in the bottom, there is a small hole of such size that water doesn't flow through this hole but drops. Under reservoir, at some distance, there is a thin metal sheet fixed only by one side. Then water drop hits the metal sheet, it creates strong noise. Let's assume the observer compares the process of water dripping from this clock and the process of candle burning. He is measuring time. After he finishes counting how many drops of water fell while the candle was burning, he may say, for example, candle burned out in 1758 drops. Or he will measure how fast the sportsman run a mile. He may say, it takes 177 drops to run a mile. Unusual to hear the word drop as measuring unit to judge the speed of the process. But, since we know where is this from, we will say that such practice has rights to exist. In such a hypothetical world, where is a second, a minute, an hour, a day, a month, a year comes from? In our real world, we also start to compare one process to another in an attempt to find the measuring unit which can be understood by anybody around us. In the beginning, people live in small groups and did not know any measuring units, but day. All their primitive life was connected with the light period of the day and dark period of the day. At night, the danger was all around, so they hide in the caves. As soon as the sun arise, they know a new day is coming. So they count the days if they want to say about someone's life, how long he has lived. At some point, because they believe that moon was born and die, after this again and again born and dies, they start using this event as a measuring unit. They start to measure the length of human life not by days but moons. They may say, my father was lived for 457 moons. At some point, they discovered that seasons repeated all the time. And it is connected with the Sunday. The moon always exists, but get into the earth shadow periodically. Connecting together all these events, days, months, years, was not an easy task. But it was done in the first primitive countries. Even at the beginning, it was believed that it is the sun rotates around the earth. This was not the obstacle to find the period by itself. It was done in many ancient civilizations. It is called a year. The period of rotation of moon around the earth they called a month. They believed that there is 12 months in the year. That how the lunar calendar was born. Ancient astronomers make in different countries same experiment. They count the days between two identical positions of the sun in the skies during the year. Was used such events as fall or spring equinox. In different places, they got the same result which satisfies the needs of the people of that time. The length of the year was 365.25 days. That's how the sun calendar was born. Since the life of the people connected more to the sun than the moon, this kind of calendar prevail and used in most countries to these days. But where is a second, a minute, an hour came from? The sundial is the mother who gives us this small fella. And ancient Egyptians, probably, was the first people who used such a device. They divide the dial from the dawn mark to the dusk mark by 12 and call each this part an hour. At summer time an hour was long, in winter, short. And only at the fall or spring equinox such device was shown real hours. Some people divide the hour by 60 and called each of this part a minute. After this, they divided each minute by 60 and called it a second. The sundial was good to see minutes, but seconds was impossible to observe. I believe someone, somewhere must to invent the sundial that uses a mirror. Mirror was placed on the high tower, for example. The sunbeam from this mirror will move across the dial, and this dial located far from the mirror. So a person can easily observe how the sunbeam moves from 1 second mark to another. Probably it was never invented at that time, people were satisfied with minutes. Today it can be an interesting attraction. The sand clock was invented, the water clock was invented. But seconds was hard to count with such tools. And people just counted by own self. Someone, someday find out that if you will repeat some phrase constantly while 1 minute, the sand clock runs, it may fit in this period very precise. In different countries, it will be a different phrase. In the USA it will be 1000 plus the number counted. For example, the person starts to count 1001, 1002, 1003, 1012, and at this moment the process has ended. This means that this process flowed for 12 seconds. In medieval time was invented the mechanical clock. Finally, chronometer and stopwatch were invented. Atomic clock shakes the human ability to imagine how accurate this machine can be. But does not matter how accurate this tool can be, the idea is the same. How many standard processes will fit in the measured one? Now, after we are studied the history of expression time, we can say that time is a procedure or description of procedure. Or logical, a numerical expression which can be used in the logical operation to define the stages of some process. You can't manipulate with time, can't create it or destroy it. You can execute it or not. If time is a procedure, you can use this information in the logical procedure or not. If time is a logical or numerical expression. But even it is sound paradoxical, expressions like time disappeared or time stopped can reflect a very real state of the matter in this world. Time doesn't exist, if there are no material objects, no events, no processes. No time as a result of the absolute absence of the matter. Time disappeared, if cool down all in this world to the absolute zero, when all events. But the flight of the frozen objects will stop. And even the objects will still fly through the universe, nothing material will be able to execute the time compares one event with another.